first one is design automation. I think everyone's heard about design automation in the last few years. Autodesk has been slapping it on almost any kind of product they have these days. The cloud technologies talk about it, and it's not just Autodesk, it's this whole design automation world out there. And design automation is really focused around our core design tools, Revit, ArchiCAD, Civil 3D, AutoCAD, whatever you want to call it, and a variety of other things. But then you got the other side of the business process automation, which is your robotic automation processes. I want to say it's a lesser known kind of title, or lesser known used. And I think it's been really started to be documented around 2018, 2017, where a lot of research or kind of processes have come from this. And having a look at what kind of came out of it, a lot of companies are looking at this to more focus on the business side of things. Okay, and that's what I want to talk about. Okay, so design automation, just as a quick summary again, is like really around the Autodesk type of views or your design software, and it ranges from your authoring tools to plugins, Dynamo, if you're in visual scripting, generative design in manufacturing and in architectural spacing. Yeah, that's focused on the design automation. Okay, robotic automation process. I like this little kind of image story, because whenever people hear robotics and the automation, like, what's my job going to do? What's going to happen to my world at the end of the day? And it's not supposed to be a fear factor, but more of an understanding of what it does and how we can leverage it to improve our lives at the end of the day. So the core concept behind why we want to look at RPA is, at the end of the day, we as users or staff employees, we've got various tasks. And sometimes the tasks are taking data from one platform, consolidating it and putting it into another platform, emailing it to people. It's tedious. The admin of life, right? I hate it. That's what I have to do it. So we want to make this as simple as possible for our everyday usage. So I'm going to put up a little bit of an example. John wants to track and manage his issues and needs to send this to different stakeholders daily. Daily could be weekly. Who has done similar tasks in the last year? Or a lot of them, right? And we don't want to do it. It's at 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, I was like, oh, I need to send out this report before tomorrow morning, right? So what does it look like? There's John. He's got different construction sites, he's got different design phases or stages of a project, different information that needs to be consolidated. So he ends up grabbing all of this data, putting it into a report, formatting it, make it look nice, whatever the case might be, and then he emails it to the stakeholders. Rinse and repeat. And we know kind of the impact of these kind of workflows. It's repetitive tasks, it's time consuming, error prone, and I call it staff specific skills, because if John leaves, no one knows how he did it, how often he did it, how he, all this kind of stuff, we don't know because he left. And that's one of the last things that people typically convey as part of what I've done for a company. Now, what if we look at this different? John needs to do this work, right? But he creates a little robot that will look at all the sites, look at all the information, consolidate that into a report that he can approve and validate. Is it correct? Does it formatting work, etc.? And then that bot will send it off to the stakeholders. Who likes that idea? Yeah, believe me, I like that idea a lot. So I'm investing a lot of hours at night trying to figure out how this works. And we can immediately see kind of the benefits. Increased productivity, speed to value and low risk items. Because on customer satisfaction, our stakeholders are quite happy because the reports are timely. It's always the same, it makes sense. Improved quality and compliancy, scalability. One site, 25 sites, a bot does it. It's not me doing it. Cost reduction, I can now spend time on more high value items. I don't have to spend hours every day doing these tasks.
Sorry, the risk here.
The risk.
Because John gets lazy and doesn't actually check that report eventually.
Well, if the report has been corrected 400 times, how often do you need to check it?
Yeah, but you still,
No,
have to
I
measure the
agree.
bases, right? And that's
Yeah.
where it goes off quite often.
No, yeah, so
Then it gets chucked away.
you still have risk. It's not all of a sudden there's no risk in your process. And that's why I always validate my information when I do something like this. I make sure it works. I make sure it works for the first 50 times. And then once a month I spot check.
So you have to.
Just to validate if the process is maintaining its structure.
People are lazy.
Yeah.
I agree. People are lazy.
John is still accountable.
At the end of the day, yeah. I like how we've actually made it a character.
John's quite an important person. Yeah.
Where is this John? He's not even here.
He's doing his
He's already failing.
Yeah, he's doing the report now. And there's different components when looking at RPA. So RPA is really more a process, and a lot of products and features and platforms resolve this process. So it's not a go buy X or just Y. You can actually build up an ecosystem that works for you. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But some of the platforms that typically works is there's low-code, no-code platforms. Anyone heard of it? Anyone use it? Anyone wanted to learn how to code in the past? This is your easier way to learn how to code without actually having to code. Okay. Then you got robotic process automation platforms. They are being developed and sold as the more bigger process for this business kind of solutions. And then actually built-in functionalities within systems. You'd be surprised how many products out there or add-ons or plugins actually do some sort of automation for you.
Sorry, just an observation. I think, because I'm an AutoCAD, I'm regretting having an AutoCAD subscription, but I see they are implementing that into AutoCAD. Right?
Even in AutoCAD, yeah.
Yeah.
With Revit, AutoCAD 2023, they've made macros more accessible and pre-scripted it, so you don't have to learn how to code macros. There are already some standard functions. Format, they've released it with visual scripting code with format already, so you don't have to go learn how to code or do visual scripting for it. So that's what I said, built-in functions. Learn your software, go through it, see what features are there to use. A good example for me is like this example of reports generated by John on a weekly basis. If you're using Work 360 or Autodesk Construction Cloud, they've got a built-in automated reporting system that will send out emails on a weekly basis, which makes my life easier. Now, when we hear automation, I think we've kind of settled now. It's not as bad as what it looks, but we still find a lot of guys that will say automation, I want to do it because it means I'm safe in my environment. But the reality is you can do so much more if some of your tasks gets automated. So when I talk about automation, I had to go research a little bit about what it is. So McKinsey did a study in July 2016 about where machines could replace humans and where they can't. Can't is yet our bigger factor, and they even said in brackets, yet. Because potentially we could get there. But they kind of broke it up into different areas or expertise, and you can kind of see them at the bottom here. You're managing others. It's got a low automation response, so you can't automate managing people. You're applying expertise while you're expert in your field. You've got a certain set of skills and knowledge that can't just be replaced automatically or that quickly. And you go all the way to the far right-hand side, which is predictable physical work, generating a report, reviewing data, transferring data from one platform to another platform. Repetitive, it's predictable, it's not really going to change that quickly. So looking at this range, you can kind of see more or less where you're sitting, and this is not really focusing on the construction as such in this little graph. But if you look at what they did with construction, so they kind of put this into how this works and technical feasibility. So you can kind of see the time spent in US occupants in percentage. And then if you look at the construction row, you can see unpredictable physical work is one of the things that's the biggest time spent, but the lowest possibility of automating. Because it's unpredictable. We don't have a recipe of how we're going to automate it. There's a lot of sort of AI, machine learning that has to learn how to do this before we even get to a stage where that is something that's feasible. But if you look at the far right-hand side, predictable physical work, it's something that could be automated. And we've seen it time and time again in the manufacturing side, with vehicles. Half the time, vehicles are being manufactured by machines, not by people. Equipment, anything like that. So manufacturing has kind of nailed it down. In construction side, we're moving into this stages of, and it's kind of still early adoption in my mind, where we're looking at prefabrication, off-site fabrication. We're starting to look at manufacturing for construction.
3D printing.
3D printing. There's a lot of tools out there that start looking at taking the predictive work and automating it. So our expertise can be more fully utilized. Because I think what you find a lot of times is you get a guy that's an expert in a field, but he has to do some remedial tasks because there's no one else that can do it, or no one has the skill else to do it. So you're taking an expert and spending hours doing junk, all of that, without him applying his knowledge and expertise where it's needed. So if you look at this also as a roadmap. So first off, now we know there's a process. It's not just flip on and anything is automated. So Worker2 is one of those platforms that have this nice maturity model. And it basically starts at automating tasks. Then it moves on to business functions. So as you can see, it's a growing mindset. Again, it's not full bat on the right-hand side, which is cognitive automation. We start talking about AI and all those kind of factors. And honestly, we as Moderna, we're sitting at automating tasks. I'm not near the far end. In fact, we're only automating about maybe 5 or 6 different tasks currently, but we're looking for those opportunities to grow these tasks to make it a better stuff. In some areas, we're planning on moving over to business functions, which if you kind of could read that little note there, but it's automating talent acquisition as an example, or automating payment plans. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to ask before you carry on, are you sending out slides or not?
Well, I think we can. I'll
Okay.
just confirm with the event organizers.
Thank you.
Why you want to steal my slides?
No. It saves me writing all that little stuff that I can't read.
I'm just going to scratch out John there, because maybe you're going to blame me.
Don't worry, I won't be presenting tomorrow.
But yeah, for me, automating tasks as an example is, so I think most of you guys are our clients, know that we have a support line. Now, we as technical people, we have to make sure that we comply to certain criteria when we do our responses to our clients, resolve issues and stuff like that, or support cases. So I'm automating the extraction of that data and presenting it as a Power BI dashboard. So our report becomes quite live, and it doesn't mean I have to go sit and capture every person's time spent or whatever the case might be. And it's one task, but I can start growing it the more data sets I have, the more information I have. Makes sense, right? And if you look at what McKinsey did in December 2019, they kind of started asking organizations, what are they doing with automation? And what's quite interesting is 5% don't know. For me, it was actually quite a low number, meaning 5% of the people they've questioned wasn't really aware of automation or how it could impact their lives. To no plans, to plan to start in the coming year, pilot underway, fully automated at least one function or a business unit, I'm at least there. And then scaling across multiple parts of businesses. So it's not that we in the dark here, this is still early adoption in my mind when you talk about RPA and business automation, process automations. So, quick question, has anyone started with their automation? No one?
So, a question though. So from obviously in construction, you are subject to a lot of stakeholders in different environments for every project, wherever you go. That's kind of probably the reason why the unpredictable work is so high compared to that sort of thing. What's the transfer between the information between the physical and the automation side? How do you actually get the information from there to there in an automated way? Because the only thing that I can think of is you've got people reporting and doing the normal thing. You know?
Of course, it's for the data capturing. So when I started talking to construction companies about adopting newer technologies, and I'm talking more construction side, design side, we've adopted some sort of better practice. That's still rudimentary when you start looking at this. Is your crux sits around your data. If you don't have data, you can't track it, you can't present it, you can't use it. So my first question is always, how do you capture your data? If you're using some of Autodesk cloud technologies, raising an issue, it's data, it's live, you can interact with it. But it's also the data that I can pull out and use it somewhere else. So for me, that is your starting point. Understanding what data you have and how it looks, and then you can start seeing how you can utilize that. You don't have to go reinvent the whole wheel and try and look at every possible thing you want. Go look at what's realistic. Find that one element you can start. One task. Not 100. Start with one task. Then the second task will come, the third task, and the fourth, and so on. But yeah, and you can really start data capturing as simple as having a Google form.
Yeah.
Or a Microsoft form. And you can do it from anywhere, your phone, computer. So that's your starting point, really, if you want to go low tech. Okay.
Sorry, just a quick question. When it comes to like data collection, right? Let's say you have your point cloud collected already. Do you think there would be like in future a way to actually generate floor plans immediately from that data capture that you've got of sites, like be it your point cloud data or the ladder
Realistically,
scans?
that feature is not that far away.
Sure.
I know about 2 companies that on LinkedIn basically advertise, they've developed tools for it. Diroots are kind of quiet down about it, but they did develop some proof of concept around it. And the other one is Encircle, a company that developed an AI that generates basically Revit models from point clouds. But yeah, so, and there's most likely a lot more out there. There's just 2 of them I'm aware of. Point clouds, however, is really difficult. And the reason is low quality versus high quality, a Leica versus a Faro, black and white versus color. So you end up having to use like AI and machine learning to start simulating what it could look like, and then it's a different ball game.
Yes, yeah, because I know with Recap it actually prints it out to the dot. You can actually get an RCP file and load it into Revit,
Yes.
and then just trace from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was actually asking myself, would there be a way that Revit can actually generate the whole 3D model itself
So
as well as the
if you
floor
break it
plans?
down into steps, your Encircle, basically they've developed the far end. They've looked at, call it cognitive automation, where they want to use AI to generate something for you. Then you sit on the far left and or right hand side, left hand side for you guys, where it's basically manual input. I get a point cloud, I link it in, I trace it up, which is almost no better than doing it off a CAD file or a PDF. I'm saying almost, at least I've got it in 3D now,
Sure.
but I still have to manually do it. There's this in-between stages where various companies have developed software which can basically, you identify, let's say, points, and you say this is a pipe, and it'll place a pipe based on those points,
Okay,
or a wall, or even windows and doors.
sure.
And those are mostly plugins or third-party software that at least integrates with Revit. I think there's ClearEdge, Faro, Asbuild, Matterport has a cloud one, and you guys can go ask the scanning team back then for more information on that. But yeah, for that design component, difficult topic. So some platforms that drives change. Now this is actually kind of my list. This is not the full entire list. And I've used these on different instances. So I love automation so much. I do it in my house. It annoys my wife. Because everything is now an app or something that I'm trying to track. But it's basically, this is kind of a starting point to get you guys head around it. And by no means are these automated or fully automated platforms or fully RPA systems. These are mostly what they sell as no-code or low-code environments. The one here, I don't know who knows this icon. Siri Shortcuts. Allows me to do automation through my phone. So as an example, I love it actually. I have a shortcut on my phone. Whenever I leave the office or any client, I just say, hey Siri, just on my phone, ET go home. It basically sends my wife a message that says, I'm leaving now. It sends how long it will take for me to get home, just estimate it, and it opens up GPS to take me the shortest route. Simple as that.
What's it called?
Siri Shortcuts is that.
Siri Short.
Yeah. So there is an equivalent for Android. I have no idea what its name is. Yeah, that's for iPhone specifically. But yeah, so you guys get the idea. A platform like Zapier, Worker2, Power Automate, they're effectively platforms that transition between different products. And I'll show you a little bit of examples like that now. You've got AppSheet, which is a no-code environment which you can develop your own little app. I'm tracking my fuel consumption, and whenever we stop at a garage, we put in how much petrol we poured in, the cost, kilometers of a car, and I've got data that shows me 5 years worth of fuel usage on all our cars, kilometers traveled per year, which for me adds value in predicting my fuel consumption in the coming month, or understanding what the price hike looked like over the last few years. And I'm just beginning at this. So you guys can imagine what you could do if you apply the same logic to construction sites to understand subcontractor habits or design team habits or whatever the case might be. Airtable I put up there because that's kind of like an online database. Not like an Excel, it's more of a Excel-ish database. You got line item and you can do quite a nice stuff with it. Like I said, not the full comprehensive list. It's my list. So what does it look like? So you have office to office. So that's where Power Automate Worker2 Zapier kind of sits in. And it'll allow you to transfer data from one platform to another platform based on your rules, based on your recipe or your Zap or whatever platform terms it. And that could, in my mind, change a lot. And you can, the circle in the middle saying, it's not just a one-way street, it can go the opposite direction. For me, the idea I was trying to play with is, what if I got an email in and I was mentioned in that email? Maybe I want to write it to an Excel spreadsheet so every morning I can go check what emails I was mentioning specifically. Not CC'd in, just mentioned in. That means there's an action required from me. CC could mean, just for my reference, I can just quickly skim through it. There's one concept. But yeah, that's kind of the ideas you want to play with. And then you've got business to construction. So Worker2 kind of plays really nice in this space at this point. And I actually put it Worker2, it's actually called ACC Connect, which is Autodesk product now, so they've bought out Worker2. But that allows me to capture data from site and transfer it into another system. Spreadsheets, Power BI dashboards, emails. I know Burn360 sends a hell of a lot of emails, that annoys everyone. But what if I could consolidate that and actually just highlight the ones that might be critical, or the due date is less than 5 days away? It changes the way how I get information in and have to process it. Doesn't solve all the problems, but it makes my life easier to know these are the critical items. The other stuff I don't have to worry about now. And again, another good example, as we find these days a lot, is guys want to make sure that data, files, drawings, PDFs, Revit files is synchronized between construction, ACC or Burn360, and SharePoint or OneDrive. Because not everyone needs access to the cloud on the construction side, but they do a lot of management on SharePoint, like your financing teams, your marketing team. And they just want to make sure that whatever is uploaded in one gets transferred to the other side, and vice versa. So your two ecosystems starts talking the same language. Make sense? And then Autodesk kind of released, I think it was early this year, late last year, Data Exchange. Now, Data Exchange is an interesting concept where it'll take the native information of files and make it accessible somewhere else. So, an example is between design and fabrication. I can take my Revit model, make it available in Inventor with automated transfer of data, and vice versa, potentially in the future. Between your 3ds Max, Inventor, you can see it goes out to Power Automate and other platforms as well. That was a big one that they released with Revit 2023. The fact that Revit can now integrate with Microsoft's Power Automate, which is basically a rule builder, and then I can take that data and do something with it. I can query how many chairs there are. On a weekly basis, it'll send out a list of how many chairs are in the office based on the design team's movement to my what do you call those guys? The chairs. with your vendors. It could be, I need to make sure that the QS has updated information on square meterage of floor areas. So instead of asking for a schedule every week, I can just build a rule that once a week, it will send out an updated schedule. If no changes are there, I can build a rule that says no changes, stick to old equations. Again, alleviates your design team spending 20, 30 minutes a week doing a task that can be automated. And then I also released, and this is where the data exchange is going, is between platforms, that integration, taking something in Rhino, which is more of a visual design tool for architects, and transferring that over to Revit for your documentation. But instead of having to remodel stuff, it just transfers over and replaces it with whatever you specify in your rules.
So where are you building those rules? What's the in-between? How is that transfer happening?
It's basically authentication. So, kind of explain the process in Power Automate is you connect to one platform you've got access to. Like in BIM 360 and ACC, you actually activate Power Automate, or other platforms that will ask for an API key, whatever the case might be. And then you enable that, and they typically give you a few possibilities, like send data, get report, whatever the case might be. So it's very restricted at this point.
And the two sides understand each other.
Yeah, and then you basically build your rule to say, well, if I'm getting all this data, what do I need? I want to filter for design issues. I want to filter for design issues within the last 5 days or the coming 5 days. And then I connect that to Outlook, and Outlook has then a send email. And I say, who needs to get this email? And you specify that list. And that list could technically be in an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be typed in. So you can have an old management plan around it.
So it's kind of like an ongoing thing. You build it small and it starts doing what you want, you add into it, and eventually it's doing
Everything you want to do.
stuff.
That's what I said, start with one task. What is the easiest, simplest thing you need to do? Just email a report. Or transfer something that comes in and just save it in OneDrive or SharePoint, or email it to whoever needs to see it. Instead of you forwarding the email, you can automate that process. Okay, so starting points. I've got a list of examples on the side here. Billing operations, invoice creation, update databases, document management, processing invoices. These are business kind of functions I want to focus on a little bit more, rather than on the construction side. Because I think whatever we learn here can also pull back into construction. My focus today was really focusing on how do we make our businesses more lean, than trying to resolve all our design and project-related problems, because that always feels like a never-ending task. But I can start inside and grow towards the outside once people adopt it more. And then ultimately, what is required for success, and this was coming from the McKinsey, one of the McKinsey reports, is reskill your organization. This is fundamentally a new way of thinking. It's letting people understand, if I'm doing it more than the same task more than twice, shouldn't I automate it? Rethink business IT collaboration. And I'm seeing that a lot. IT has always been prone for network setup, server setup, but I'm seeing more IT companies trying to diversify. One, because cloud is becoming such a big thing, they need to be able to implement cloud strategies. But two is they need to be able to actually utilize some of these no-code, low-code platforms to actually improve their automation within organizations. Support transformation with a center of excellence. So it's not a concept we really use in South Africa, but it's really that kind of being able to get customer satisfaction, to get feedback and build this excellence platform where people can be kind of proud of what they've achieved and things like that. And then focus on creating an impact. And even if the impact is just you, that's how you learn how to automate, and then eventually that grows into the next person and so on. And then keep people first. Don't forget about the people. Yeah, I'm done now. Thanks, Lee. But yeah, so keep people first for me is always fundamental, because they're ultimately the people you want to improve their lives. It's not just replacing them, it's actually helping them to be able to do more high-value tasks than just doing the remedial tasks. And that's kind of it, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, any questions, any comments?
Sorry, which South African companies are actually implementing this?
Across the board, I actually know actually I can't even say handfuls. I actually know of us doing it. And it's purely because me and Jay, my general manager, we like these kind of automation, so we implement it ourselves. And then I know about what's it called? It's an architectural firm. Peter is the guy there. He's been doing it for their office, trying to automate, building a little bit of apps for the in-house management of activities and tasks. IT companies haven't come across anyone that's done it. When I did a little bit of an examination for one of the Microsoft platforms, I was talking to the examiner and she's saying that they're finding a lot of IT companies are bringing guys in to do these exams to improve that process. Yet again, I think in construction we're lagging on that side, where in your typical financing business, your banks and things like that, it's a higher of adoption rate.
So you guys are pioneers.
Trying to be, but it's just due to my need to not do the same task twice. Cool. Then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time.
Practice makes perfect.
It does.
If you do it over and over, you'll get it right.
But if I do it enough times, I know how to automate it to get it right.